The laughter hit her before the words did. It echoed across the restaurant, sharp, careless, cruel, and Amelia froze just outside the glass doors, her fingers still wrapped around the small gift bag she'd bought with her last savings. Inside, her fiancé stood with another woman pressed to his side. His arm was around the mistress's waist, his head tilted back as he laughed, then pointed directly at Amelia. "Oh look," he said loudly, making sure everyone heard. "She actually came." The woman beside him smirked, whispering something that made them both laugh again. Amelia felt the room spin. 5 years of love, of sacrifice, of believing in someday, collapsed into a single humiliating moment. Her hands trembled as tears blurred her vision. She turned to leave, but her legs felt heavy, rooted to the floor. That was when a quiet voice spoke beside her. "Don't cry," a man said gently. "He's not worth it." Amelia looked up, startled. The man stood a little apart from the crowd, a tired-looking single dad holding the hand of a small boy who clutched a toy car. His eyes held no pity, only understanding. The kind that came from someone who had been broken and survived. "I know it hurts," he continued softly. "But sometimes life shows us the truth before it's too late." Something in his calm steadiness cracked the dam. Amelia's tears finally fell, silent but heavy. She nodded, unable to speak. The boy tugged on his father's sleeve and offered her the toy car with a shy smile. In that simple moment, between betrayal and kindness, Amelia felt something shift. The pain was still there, but for the first time, it wasn't lonely. And she didn't yet know that this quiet stranger was about to change her life in ways she never imagined. Amelia left the restaurant that night without looking back. The sound of laughter followed her onto the street, but it no longer pierced as deeply as it had moments before. The single dad walked beside her for a short distance, respectful, unassuming, as if he understood that sometimes silence was kinder than questions. "I'm Daniel," he finally said. "And this little guy is Noah." Noah waved shyly, still holding his toy car, then pressed it into Amelia's hand again as if it were a promise. Amelia managed a small smile. "I'm Amelia. Thank you for earlier. You didn't have to say anything." Daniel shrugged gently. "Someone once did the same for me. It matters more than people realize." They parted ways under a flickering streetlight, and Amelia assumed that would be the end of it. Life, however, had other plans. Days later, Amelia found herself at a small community cafe, staring at her laptop, struggling to focus. Bills were piling up, the wedding savings were gone, and the future she had planned felt painfully empty. As she stood to leave, she nearly collided with a familiar face. Daniel. He was there with Noah again, homework spread across the table. Recognition flashed between them, followed by an easy, unexpected smile. This time, conversation came naturally. Amelia learned Daniel's wife had passed away years ago, leaving him to raise Noah alone. There was grief in his story, but no bitterness, only quiet strength. They began meeting by chance more often. Coffee turned into conversations. Conversations turned into laughter Amelia hadn't realized she missed. Daniel never asked about her ex, never pushed her pain. He simply showed up, consistently kindly. Slowly, Amelia noticed something strange. She no longer cried herself to sleep. And for the first time since that night at the restaurant, she felt hopeful, not because life was perfect, but because kindness had found her when she needed it most. Just as Amelia began to feel steady again, life tested her resolve. One afternoon, while leaving the cafe with Daniel and Noah, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Sharp. Mocking. Unapologetic. Her ex-fiancé stood there, arm wrapped around the same woman, his smile dripping with arrogance. "Well, Amelia," he scoffed, eyes flicking to Daniel. "Moved on fast, didn't you?" The old humiliation threatened to rise, but this time, something was different. Amelia felt Daniel shift beside her, not possessive, not confrontational, just present. Solid. "She's happy," Daniel said calmly. "That's all that matters." The words stunned her ex more than anger ever could. He laughed it off, pretending not to care, but the insecurity was obvious. Amelia met his gaze and realized, with quiet clarity, that the man who once broke her no longer had power over her heart. Later that evening, as Daniel walked her home, Amelia finally spoke the words she'd been holding in. "You saved me that night. You don't even know how broken I was." Daniel stopped and looked at her seriously. "You were never broken. You were just hurt." Emotion welled up in her chest, not pain this time, but gratitude. She saw how gently he spoke to Noah, how patient he was, how love guided his every action. It made her reflect on the kind of love she had accepted before, and the kind she deserved now. Days turned into weeks. Trust grew slowly, carefully. Amelia found herself helping Noah with school projects, cheering at his small victories. Daniel noticed how naturally she fit into their lives, though either of them dared to name what was growing between them. But love, when rooted in kindness, doesn't rush. It waits. And it heals. The emotional turning point came unexpectedly. One rainy evening, Amelia received a call from her ex-fiancé. Desperation had replaced arrogance. His business deal had collapsed, his mistress had left, and suddenly he realized his mistake. He asked to meet, to talk. Old wounds stirred, but Amelia agreed, more for closure than hope. Daniel didn't try to stop her. He simply said, "Whatever you decide, I trust you." Those words echoed louder than any promise she'd heard before. At the meeting, her ex pleaded, blamed circumstances, even tried to guilt her with memories of the past. Amelia listened quietly, then stood up. "You didn't lose me because of a mistake," she said calmly. "You lost me because you showed me who you really are." For the first time, she walked away without tears. Outside, Daniel was waiting, not because he doubted her, but because he cared. Rain soaked the pavement as Amelia broke down, overwhelmed by relief. Daniel held her, not romantically, not possessively, but with the steady compassion that had become her safe place. "I choose peace," she whispered. Daniel smiled softly. "Then you're choosing the right thing." That night, Amelia realized the emotional climax of her journey wasn't about revenge or proving her worth. It was about choosing kindness toward herself. She didn't know what the future held with Daniel, but she knew this. Love built on respect felt nothing like the love she'd lost. It felt like home. Months later, Amelia stood in the same restaurant where her heart had once shattered, but this time, she wasn't broken. Daniel sat across from her, Noah between them, proudly announcing his school achievements. Laughter filled the table, warm and genuine. There was no show, no cruelty, no need to impress, just real connection. Daniel reached for Amelia's hand, tentative but hopeful. She squeezed back, smiling. This love had grown quietly, nurtured by patience, empathy, and shared healing. Across the room, her ex noticed them. He looked smaller somehow. Not because Amelia had risen above him, but because she no longer carried his shadow. Later that night, as they walked home, Amelia reflected on how one whispered sentence, "Don't cry, he's not worth it," had changed everything. It hadn't erased her pain, but it had redirected her life. She had learned that kindness can arrive through strangers. That broken moments can lead to beautiful beginnings. And that sometimes the greatest love stories aren't loud or dramatic. They're gentle, steady, and rooted in humanity. Amelia looked at Daniel and Noah and felt something settle peacefully in her heart. She hadn't lost love that night in the restaurant. She had been guided toward a better one. And sometimes, that's life's greatest gift,